reason why we're here is to go over really our culture. You know, if we're going to say that I want you to be busy or I want you to provide that extraordinary effort and strive for excellence, then we got to have some ways to help you do that. And I don't want it just to be while you're at Cedarville, while you're in this position, but I want it to be something that becomes ingrained in your everyday life. So that when you're with your family, when you're with your church, when you're with your occupation, when you're with friends, you're always thinking is like, hey, how do I provide that extraordinary effort? And how do I strive for excellence? How do I live out Romans 12:10? Outdo one another in showing honor. That's what I want you guys to do. So that's why we're here. So the idea of BZ Principles is not just this time that we get you up at 7 a.m. and go, hey, goody, goody, and get you some Chick-fil-A or Bill's Donuts. But the idea of it is to equip you with timely and timeless leadership topics. These are things that are not going away. The idea of being resolute is not a new topic. The idea of solving problems and finding solutions is not based upon 2021 due to COVID. It is something that will continue for the rest of your life. So that's why we do this, but we do it for another reason. We don't just want to equip you. We want to engage you. We want to engage you in discussion. So you will hear some things this morning, and I want you to ask some questions. When our guest gets here, we're going to have some time to ask some questions because you learn from people. I know the best way that I learn from people is when I go and we visited with the client just a few days ago. I'm asking them, hey, what are you learning? What are you reading? What's going on in your life? Because you learn from people. So that's why we're here. And the topic this semester or this year is the idea of being resolute. I think our world needs us to be resolute. And what I mean by resolute is that purposeful action. Because a lot of times we come into 2020 and we're like, what do we do with COVID? We come into 2021 and we're like, what do we still do with COVID? I don't know what 2022 is going to hold, but I do know that it will be something that you need to be resolute. You need to be resolved. The idea of I'm purposeful in what I'm doing. I know what I believe. I know who I believe in. Did you guys ever think about that? As Christians, as Christ followers, we should be the most resolute people in the world because we know the end story, right? The rest of the world is putting their hands up going, I don't know what to do. But as Christians, we know the end story. We know who holds the future. So that's why we want to be resolute. So we've already talked about resolute, the idea of resolve, the idea of purposeful action, because to be resolved means to not just be like, what should I do today? It's like, I know what to do. I'm going to go do it. It's not about popularity. It's not about, hey, is this about winning everybody's approval? It's about doing the right thing. Then we talked the last time about empathy, the importance of people. Because you just can't be resolute and run over people. You know, God is very clear in Scripture that we are to love the Lord our God with all our heart, with all our soul, and with all our mind, but we're supposed to do what? Love our neighbors as ourselves. And I think a lot of times we're like, I'm resolute, I'm going to do what I believe God's had me to do, and then we run over people. That is not what God is asking you to do in being resolute. So we come to our next topic, which is today, which is solving problems and finding solutions. So why do we do that? Well, the world is broken. Anybody disagreeing with that? You can just look at American politics and you can go, the world is really, really broken. The world is broken with what we've got going on with COVID. The world is broken. Problems will come. And then the other thing is, guys, opportunities are there, but people don't always take them. They don't. They just like, oh, there's an opportunity there. I'll do with it later. Opportunities are there. They're just not always taken. So how do we be resolute in solving problems and finding solutions? I want to give you a definition of what I mean by solving problems and finding solutions. I believe it's leading with conviction and leading with humility. Those are your kind of your borders. You lead with conviction. You know what you believe. That's why you're at Cedarville. That's why you get up and you spend time with the Lord. That's why you spend time with other Christ followers. That's why you spend time at church. So you know what you believe. Because if you wait to figure out what you believe until a crisis happens at work or when you're tempted with something to maybe go against your marriage, that's too late. Am I right? You got to know what you believe. You got to lead with conviction and you got to lead with humility, which means you know what you know. but then you admit that you don't know everything, right? So the whole idea of this is if you want to solve problems and find solutions, you have to lead with conviction. You got to know what you believe. You got to know who you believe in. And you got to lead with humility. So how do you do this? I want to give you 5 steps before we go into our Q&A time. I think it's really easy, but I also think it's really difficult because it's not natural. So these are the 5 ways I believe that you can find solutions and you can also solve problems. So number 1, you have to have awareness. So my daughter played soccer last night. Every time a ball is passed, you know what I yell? Heads up, watch that ball. That's awareness. You're aware of your current situation. You have your eyes up, your head is up. You're aware of the people that you're serving. I'm aware of my family. I know what's going on in my family. I have to have awareness. I have to have awareness of the current situation around us. When I make decisions for us, I have to have awareness of how does this affect other people at Cedarville, but also how will this affect you when you leave Cedarville? So I have awareness. That's the first thing. Step number 1. I got to be aware. Keep your head up. Number 2, you visualize the solution. I think a lot of times people are like, hey, there's a problem. I'm just going to go tackle it. The problem with that, you might tackle the wrong problem. You need to visualize the solution. You got to keep your eyes open. It's kind of like event planning. You know what the event needs to be. You need to visualize it. And once you visualize the solution, the next step, you take some actions or you set some steps. You reverse engineer what you visualize. So number 1, you're aware. Number 2, you take the time to visualize, okay, what is this problem that I'm going through right now? Okay, what could it be? What are some solutions that could happen? Visualize that and then reverse engineer that to step number 3 and start to put some action steps in there. I think a lot of times people, when they get to problems, they visualize, okay, this is the solution, but it's just way too hard. I give up. And that's the problem. So be aware, visualize, and then you make some steps, reverse engineer it. So in that, you develop roles and responsibilities. You set deadlines. Do you know that you're dead if you don't set deadlines? Let me say that again. You are dead if you don't set deadlines because there's no reason to get it done. And also, one of the things when you're going through a crisis, you need to realize something that Winston Churchill said. Never waste a good crisis. Maybe God is taking you through that crisis to teach you something that 20 years down the road you're going to learn from, and you're going to be equipped more to do that. God might take you through something now that He is equipping you, that when you have a 14-year-old son who's acting like a complete butthead. Okay? I'm looking at my life now going, oh, that's why I went through what I went through. Got it. But the whole idea is I'm aware of that. I'm visualizing that. I'm setting some steps. A lot of times we stop there because we're overwhelmed. The 4th step, take action. Just try. Be courageous. It's okay to fail because failure is not final. It's not fatal. We learn from failure. I think a lot of times we're paralyzed by fear because we don't want to move. And that's not what it's about. So first of all, we got to be aware. We visualize. We set steps. We take action. And the last step, you evaluate. And then you innovate. So you're asking yourself the question, did that work? And what can I improve? I think a lot of times we fail because we forget to ask ourselves the question like, did that even work? And what can I improve on? And I think a lot of times we fail on improving because we're like, it's too big, I can't improve. Can I challenge you to improve 1% a day? What can you improve today 1%? If you have that mindset, think about what it is at the end of the year. You've improved a lot if you're just trying to improve 1%. I think it can become daunting to say, okay, I've got a 60 in biology, which I did my freshman year. I have a 60 in biology and I want an 80. 20% is a little hard for somebody like me who doesn't like to study, okay? But 1%, you tackle it 1% at a time. So God has called you to be resolute. He's called you to be that. God in His Word has been very clear. The Scriptures are replete with how many times that God says, I need you to be courageous. I need you to live with conviction. And the way you do that is you've got to be okay with solving problems. Don't throw your hands up in the air and walk away and go like, I just don't care because there's a problem here. You got to solve problems and you got to find solutions. And one of the ways you do that, you're BZ. You provide that extraordinary effort, right? Solving a problem, provide that extraordinary effort, and strive for excellence. That's what you can do. Problems aren't as daunting as we make them out to be. We allow Satan and our fears to rule our lives instead of allowing conviction and humility to be the way that we lead. So go solve problems and go find solutions.